So as you all know, we have some major issues here in the United States. But because of these major issues, we are now hearing some good news that we could potentially be hearing more updates on Social Security and the potential reform there. So I want to address that in today's video, what's going on and why this is such a big deal. But first, all I ask is if you can spend just 2 seconds, go ahead, hit that like button for the YouTube algorithm, and make sure you click that subscribe button so I can keep you up to date on everything that is going on. Now, here's what we know. Democrats are demanding that Republicans, they vote separately on the debt ceiling increase and the federal budget for fiscal year 2024. They say we can't tie the two together in an effort to stop advances to Social Security. But Republicans ask, what advances? What are we really stopping? Well, here's what we know. Just the other day, Republican Senator Bill Cassidy, he questioned the Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. And he said, and I quote, "Of the $4.5 trillion in taxes President Biden has proposed, not a dime is going to shore up Social Security. Why doesn't the president care about threats to funding's program, or the program's funding?" And Secretary Yellen responded with, "He cares very deeply, and President Biden stands ready to work with Congress." Okay, that's good news, right? I would assume that would be good news. But there are reports that have indicated that talks should have already started and that Republicans have reached out many times. Even Senator Bill Cassidy said, and I quote, "Because when a bipartisan group of senators has repeatedly requested to meet with him about social so that somebody who is a current beneficiary will not see her benefits cut by 24%, we have not heard anything on our request, and we've made multiple requests to meet with the president." But he's nowhere to be found. Now, we've seen this. We've heard about this, that yes, President Biden has been requested for a meeting with a bipartisan group of senators to talk about Social Security. But guess what? That meeting hasn't happened. However, a meeting with specific senators, for example, Senator Bernie Sanders, that did happen. And that was before President Biden released his fiscal year 2024 budget. And Bernie Sanders pretty much told him, we need to increase taxes. Here's what we need to do. So he has met with, Senator Bernie Sanders, but he hasn't met with this bipartisan group of senators, and that is creating a little bit of an issue. Now, here's something that I find very interesting, and let me know if your thoughts on this as well. But there's actually a couple of interviews that Democratic senators have done just recently, and in those interviews, to me it sounds like President Biden is waiting to deal with Social Security. And now you're probably thinking, well, why? Why would he do that? Well, based off of what we know and based off of how the Biden administration has handled some of these past promises, they wait until the last minute where it could benefit the administration the most. That's what we've seen. Remember right before the midterm elections where all of a sudden we now knew that student loan forgiveness was back on the table. That was being done by the Biden administration. And then it was just a little bit after that, it's like, no, we can't do that, right? That's going to be put on hold. That's kind of what we're seeing here. Because, and again, I don't want to speculate that we're going to see something in 2024. But here's the thing. And again, Social Security is such a big deal. Republicans need to address it, and Democrats need to address it. This is a bipartisan bill. This needs to be a bipartisan bill. This is a bipartisan problem. And so we need to fix it. Well, what we are hearing, and again, based on some of these interviews, you got to read between the lines here, but based off what we are hearing, it seems like some lawmakers want to push Social Security back into 2024. And I said that's not a good thing because it's very difficult to get a deal done right before the elections. In an election year, it's going to be very difficult. So this is why it's very interesting. But we could see 2023 be the year of the debt ceiling. We could see it be there. Well, we know there's going to be more, talks, more assistance likely going to Ukraine. And so what's going to happen there? We got to deal with inflation. We got to deal with this banking crisis. So now, and I said this before, if we don't get Social Security done soon, it's going to keep getting pushed back. Okay, goes back further and further every single time because there's always something that comes up. Okay, now here's the other thing. Now that we are talking about the debt ceiling, I've gotten this question, a handful of times over the past couple of weeks, and I want to answer it. I have mentioned that Republicans want the debt limit paired with spending cuts to social programs. And with that, Republicans have also proposed a plan that would prioritize some debt obligations over others. Well, many of you have asked, well, would Social Security be one of the debt obligations that is prioritized? The answer is yes. However, according to Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, something else would be prioritized over Social Security payments. And I want to address what that is and explain kind of what's happening there. So here's what we know. Yesterday, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said that this is a dangerous idea. By prioritizing payments based off of a debt amount and also starting with the public first, this is actually very dangerous. And the reason why it's dangerous is because China owns about $1 trillion in debt, in our debt, right? So we would have to pay China first. That is a problem. When we are going to pay China first over people here in the United States, that's not something that we need to be doing. And again, this is something that the American people have, we've been rightfully complaining about, is why are we sending money to Ukraine and China and other countries when we could keep that money in-house? Well, here's what we know. If China received payments first, then Social Security recipients would be paid second, and more payments would flow out, as needed. But I've seen a lot of articles over the past, couple of days, and over the past couple of days, every single article says the same thing. China would be paid, and Social Security recipients would not. That's not true. Okay, Social Security recipients would get paid. Okay, so those statements that China will get paid before Social Security recipients, that is true. But China being paid and not Social Security recipients, that is 100% false. Now, in the event that the United States only had enough money to pay one of these, China would be paid first. Okay? China would have to be paid first. But again, this is just a Republican proposal, not an actual bill. I don't see this getting passed. Okay? So just keep that in mind, even though some people are saying that this is just a horrible idea, it's not going to work, that means we're not getting paid. Again, it's a proposal, not a bill. All right? So that is what I wanted to discuss regarding Social Security, but I also want to give you a quick little update on some other news. And that is that yesterday, we got reports that Poland was going to be sending 4 fighter jets to Ukraine. And this morning, we learned that Slovakia is also going to be sending the MiG-29 fighter jets as well to help repel Russia's invasion. However, Slovakia stated, and they're not sending just 4 fighter jets, they will be sending 13, but at an unspecified date. Now, why am I talking about this in a video for Social Security? Here's why. This is a big event. Because now that Poland and Slovakia, 2 NATO countries, are sending military equipment, guess what? There's a good chance more countries are going to send equipment. Okay, there's a very good chance we're going to see more countries jump on board. Experts believe that the only chance Ukraine has of winning this war with Russia is by getting outside assistance from other countries. So, again, why does this make a difference to Social Security? Well, here's why. We know the United States is going to continue to send money to Ukraine. It's going to cause issues. Well, if Democrats say, no, we have to get more funding for Ukraine. Guess what Republicans are going to do? They're going to say, okay, well, we also need to make sure that our budget is balanced. We're not in deficit spending, right? We can't do that. We need to make spending cuts to social programs. One of the things that I've said before, and I know Republicans say that it's off the table, we will not see any cuts to Social Security or Medicare. There's a problem. Some experts believe, and more experts now are starting to believe this, is that we can't just see cuts and we can't just see an increase in taxes. The two have to go together. We have to see both. Again, I don't know if we're going to see cuts to Social Security, but what I do know is if you take cuts to Social Security and Medicare off and defense spending off the table, we would need to see it's like a 70% cut to all the other programs. That also includes food stamps. So even though you may not be getting much money for Social Security and you may be getting a decent amount for food stamps, guess what? If we see cuts, you're going to lose some of the money to food stamps. Okay? This is going to be a problem because essentially it's just taking money away from your Social Security check. It's really all we're doing. It's just pulling it from somewhere else so that, it's kind of, they're distracting you over here so that they can take from you here. We've seen this done before, and again, it's nothing new, but I will keep you updated on what's going on. But again, this is why it's such a big deal, is because if these other countries are starting to pull the U.S. into this war between Ukraine and Russia, it's only a matter of time before we see additional spending, which also means from a Republican standpoint, we will see more cuts or more requests for a cut. So that's what we know at this time. As always, as I know more, I promise I'll come back on and share all the latest news and updates. Again, thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Consider subscribing. I'll see you guys on the next one.